Hey guys, I'm Jody.
And I'm Justin.
And today we are going to do a 4-game mini review. These all are review copies that have been sent to us by the publishers, so thank you very much, publishers. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these games, do quick overviews, and give our thoughts on them. Justin will do...
I'm gonna do Trekking the World from Underdog Games, a 1 to 5 player game, and I will also look at Panda Royale, last night games, 2 to 10 player.
And then we'll also do this one, Space Station Phoenix together, Rio Grande Games. And then I played this one, Peacemakers, Horrors of War, from Snowdale Design. So let's take a look at them. Here we go. In Space Station Phoenix, each player begins with a small fleet of spaceships. Each ship represents an action that the player can take on their turn. Throughout the game, players will use these actions to build a space station and populate it with members of 4 different alien species and the occasional human. The primary way to get the metal needed to build their stations is by dismantling the very ships they depend on to power their actions. Diplomatic posturing, careful timing of actions, and resource management all come into play as players race and outmaneuver one another in an attempt to construct the largest, most powerful, and most populous space station around this planet the natives call Earth. The player with the most points at the end of the game wins. So on your turn, you're going to either do a ship action or an income action. A ship action is where you're going to take your little pawn and place it on a ship. Now it can be one of yours, another player's, or a neutral area. And you're going to have to pay its costs in gems. And then depending on what action you took, you might have bonuses from the diplomacy track and possibly from sectors that you have built. Now the income action is basically kind of like a regrouping, is where you're going to get gems. Now each player might have different ways to produce the gems depending on what your hub is. And typically, like the basic hub might be, for instance, like how many ships you might have. But there's different ways that you can get it. And as you build your sectors, you might also be increasing your production for income each time.
So the first ship action that you can use is the dismantle action. And so when you move your pawn to that place, you're going to essentially dismantle one of your ships in order to get the metal that you would gain from that. And that metal will then be used in the next ship, construction, where you're then going to use that metal to build a sector of your space station.
And with construction, there are different levels of sectors. You got level 1, 2, and 3, and the cost is going to increase as you do the higher level sectors. Then you have the Terran Expedition, where you get to roll a bunch of dice, and you get to roll more than the amount of dice that you can choose to keep. So you got to make decisions there. You can potentially get resources like metal, food, water, or some humans that you can pay resources in order to place it in one of your sectors, or simply score 1 point, I think it was. And then you have transport action, which depending on which ship you go to, you might give you like 3 transactions or 4, just depending on where you go. And this basically lets you exchange resources to get different aliens or resources for other resources. It's just a lot of transactions that you can take.
Then you've also got the diplomacy track, where you can gain different bonuses throughout the course of the game. This is also an area where when something happens for one person, it's also going to happen for other people as well, depending on where you are on that track.
Yeah, whenever you move up, there's different costs that is going to be paid in gems. And then there's simply the farm and ice collector ships, where you just get food and water. And then the game end will be triggered in one of 3 ways. If a player has 40 or more points, if someone has built all 9 of their sectors, or if there are 4 or less aliens available, then the game end will be triggered. And there are several ways to score points in this game. So one of the main ways is scoring points for the sectors of the space station that you have built. There are different levels, 1, 2, and 3. So if you built, for instance, a level 3 sector, that sector will be worth 10 points, and the smaller ones will be worth fewer points. Then there's also a majority of aliens and humans compared to each other, and the amount of residents you have is 2 points per resident, which includes aliens and humans. And there's a few other ways to score points as well. So what did you think about this game?
I thought this game was interesting. It was one of those where I enjoyed the play. I just don't know how often I would reach for it. But I really did enjoy when we did play it, and I think part of that was because of the dismantle was interesting. Kind of taking from some of your ships in order to build parts of your space station. I thought that was really interesting, and trying to figure out the balance of how to make all that work together.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on like what in-game scoring you have on your personal hub, because that's can be asymmetric. For instance, one game I played, would get more in-game points if I had like one ship left or two ships. I don't know, very few ships. So like I had to dismantle a lot during the game, which was it's an interesting concept where like your ship actions you get fewer and fewer and fewer. It's just so interesting. So you have to rely on other people or the neutral area. I don't know. It's just kind of interesting concept.
Yeah.
I don't think I've felt that type of play in a game before.
Yeah.
Where you're like tearing something down to get stuff, and you kind of have to. It's kind of weird.
You kind of have to manage that because, like you said, you have less and less stuff that you can do as you take more and more of your ships out of the game.
Yeah,
so,
it's interesting.
It's pretty cool. I also like the diplomacy tracks.
Oh, yes.
It was, we kind of tend to like that type of stuff where there's some sort of track where as you move up, you have these kind of bonuses along the way, but it was also an area where, everybody's getting something generally based on where they are on those tracks. So
yeah, I love games where you have to like pay attention on everybody's turn because you might get goodies on everyone's turn. I really like that in games, so that's a plus for this one for me.
Yeah.
I think the production's pretty decent. I like the components. I thought everything was pretty good. I of course love space themed games, so I definitely wanted to try this one. And I like it. Yeah, I think it's a good game. I would say this is like a midweight game, not super easy, not overly complex. It's kind of in there in the middle. And I feel like there's also some decent variability because you might have different sector tiles available for each game, and there's a lot of different hubs that you can play with, which will change your income and your in-game scoring. So there's some variability as well. But overall, I think this is a good game for me, and I would say fine for you is what I gathered.
For me, yeah.
That is Space Station Phoenix. Welcome to Trekking the World, where you and your friends have wonderful trips, visit fantastic destinations, and meet lovely people all over the globe. To win, you score points by taking tours, having encounters, and collecting souvenirs. So we're going to be taking turns back and forth, and the turn structure isn't that difficult. To start, you're going to choose one of the itinerary cards that are on display, and you're going to follow the steps. And the first thing is simply the movement, like it might say move 3 or move 2. So then you're going to move your dude on the map that many spaces, keeping in mind that you can go from an airport to an airport as long as you pay the cost, which I think is $1 for that move. So if you need to jump across to somewhere else, then that's a quick way to do it. Mm-hmm. And then you will simply gain money, and then you might get some souvenirs if your dude is in the corresponding continent. Then you can grab those souvenirs, the little cubes from the tray, and put them in your suitcase.
And when you place those souvenirs into your suitcase, you're going to put them into certain spots that might then reward you with tokens. So some tokens might be, you might get an extra move, you might get an extra, you might be able to fly, it's a frequent flyer one, and then there might be extra money, or you can double up on the kind of souvenirs that you
Yeah. And then at that point, you can potentially get an encounter card or a tour card. For the encounter cards, you have to be in the location, and if you are, then you can simply grab the card. The card will basically either give you like some bonuses or something you can do during the game, or potentially another way to score points at the end of the game. And then the tour cards, you would have to be in its location, but also pay the cost for the tour card.
And then the game is going to end when somebody places their final tour card. Now, what card is their final tour card depends on how many players you actually have. So we played 2 and 3, so the 5th tour card was the last one for us, and so that was when the game ends at that point.
And then you will tie up all your points and see who wins, and you will get points from all your tour cards. You add up all of those. You might get extra points from the encounter cards. It just depends on what you got during the game. And then you're going to score your suitcase. So whatever column you have or the farthest right column you have completely filled up with souvenirs, that number below that is the points you get. And you add up all those, and whoever has the most points is the winner. So, what do you think about the game?
Simple and very enjoyable. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the art on the cards.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Really
Really
good.
pretty.
And I'm kind of I like the idea of travel, and this is kind of fun, like globe hopping, bouncing around. It was just a fun, really simple, easy to learn, just easy to get into.
Yeah,
So.
definitely a good family weight game. This is or like an entry level game. I think this would be a great one. I feel like it would be a Ticket to Ride type of level for like an entry game.
Maybe even slightly less.
No, because there's a little bit more complexities maybe with the encounter cards and the tour cards. There's like maybe a few more moving components, I would say, but I think it's along the lines of like a Ticket to Ride level family weight game. The production I thought was great. The aesthetic. I mean, look at that cover. I think that's great as well. But the organization is awesome. It comes with everyone's suitcases. Suitcases are dual layered. You have a game or I don't know if it's actually game trays, but you have a little tray that stores everything. The appearance was awesome. Quality great. Yeah, overall an excellent production. Now this is the second edition. I haven't played the first edition, but I watched like how to play or some video, and I believe it was the first edition. And I think there are several things that seem to be different. Just from what I watched, I feel like this is definitely the better version, better game. I feel like it's just a little more gamery, more fine tuned. But like I said, I haven't played the first edition, but definitely this is a good one. So overall, I think it's pretty positive. Definitely check this one out if it looks like one you might be interested in. Trekking the World. Panda Royale is a dice drafting game for 2 to 10 players. Assemble your team of pandas from among all of the clans in order to compete. Each color of dice represents a different panda clan, each with its own abilities. Choose your dice wisely to battle your opponents and earn the highest score over 10 rounds in this high-energy game of strategy and chance. So this game is played over 10 rounds. Each round has a sequence of steps. Our cat is going crazy. Sequence of steps. So the first thing you're going to do is everyone is going to roll their dice and tally up the score.
To figure out the score is pretty easy. It's written on your score sheet how each color die is going to be scored during the game. Now there's a pity die that's going to be given to the person with the lowest score at the end of each round. There's also some clear die that are going to be used for trading die, so you may not keep all the stuff that you end up choosing. And then there's a draft, so each round you're going to end up drafting, and who goes first in that draft is going to be based on who has the highest number on their yellow dice. So there's a lot of things you're kind of thinking about. This.
And depending on the player count, things might change. For instance, like there might be multiple pity die, and there might be obviously more dice available to draft. I think it's the player count plus 1, so there's going to be an extra one. Okay, so let's talk about the different die. All right, starting with the red dice. That can turn out to be a really good thing or a really bad thing. It's a positive or a negative experience, depending on if it's black or the white writing on the dice. What is that? I don't know what it's called. Anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to add up the face value of the red dice and multiply it by the number of red dice you have. And like I said, if it's black, for instance, it would be a negative amount.
Correct.
Not good.
Yeah. And then you have the green dice, which is pretty simple and straightforward. It's just a 20-sided die. So these die have the biggest potential numbers that you could roll in a single roll.
I love those. They make me happy.
They are very nice.
And then you have the pity die and the white or clear trade dice. Now both of those are going to be face value, but remember the pity die is an extra die that gets passed around, and then the clear ones let you do the trading.
And then of course you have the yellow die, which as mentioned before, if you have the highest number on your yellow dice at the end of your roll, then you will have first pick in the drafting later on. So it might be worth it to get more yellow dice so that you have a higher number.
There's not tons of yellow dice that come out, but there is a possibility that more yellow dice might pop out. But for scoring purposes, you just simply do the face value of that. And then you have purple dice, which you basically do the face value times 2. And then the blue dice is the face value unless you have a blue glitter die. If you do, then you do the face value of all your blue dice times 2. You only need 1 glitter die in order to do that. and it is glorious.
Yes, those glitter die can definitely make all the blue dye that are available, which is probably the most abundant of all the different kinds of dye. It can make those blue dyes worth quite a lot.
Yes. So, what did you think about this game?
This is just fun. It kind of toes the line between, some level of strategy and just a fun party game.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of chance because there's tons of dice rolling for sure.
Yeah, but there's some selection of what do you think is going to be the best die for you and your setup. You might have a lot of blue already, and then you see that blue glitter one out there that could double everything up. So
unless it gets drafted before it comes around to you.
Yeah. So and then you could go and get something, and then somebody could just trade with the silly clear
dice. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of take that involved, I guess you could say. So that's why I think, and you can play up to 10 players. It's just fun for pretty much a big group of people that.
Well, we haven't played more than 4.
No.
So I don't know what the experience is like, but I don't think it would be
I don't think
crazy
it would be
much
that
more
different.
time added because it's a lot of stuff is simultaneous, except for like the drafting, for instance. But yeah, I think this is a really fun, lighthearted game. If you like dice and dice rolling, this is one to try out. I just have fun seeing all the different kinds of dice. I just have fun dumping the bag of dice and just seeing all different colors and different types of die. Like, it is just fun.
They're pretty.
Yes, and the people we played with have enjoyed it. We have one friend that has borrowed this and taken it to multiple friends, and everyone has really enjoyed this game. It includes over 100 dice. It's just fun, yeah. Definitely check this one out if you like dice and dice rolling. That is Panda Royale. Peacemakers Horrors of War is a cooperative game where you try to achieve peace between warring animal folk armies. The game has 6 unique scenarios, and each one presents a new, challenging conflict for you to resolve. The rules are the same for all player counts, including solo. So basically in this game, you're trying to get both animal folk types to get their motivation to be in the green zone. If they're both in the green zone during the status phase, then you win the game. If either of them have hit the 0 motivation at status phase, then you lose. And if it's neither of those, then you play another round. And each round has an adventurer phase, an army phase, and then the status phase, which we just talked about. During the adventurer phase, you're going to be playing cards, your resource cards, to take actions. And then once you're done with that, then you're going to draw 4 new cards. And those will be split among all the players. And of course, if you're playing solo, then you get all 4 of them. Now, let's talk about some of those actions. So you can potentially play a card to do the survey part. Not every card is going to have every action available, so you have to choose which cards to play wisely. But if it has the survey action, then what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of the army's order decks and you're going to flip one of the army orders face up. This action is important to help you basically kind of plan what you want to do. Then you have travel action, which basically lets you move on the board. And then you have the fortification, which lets you put out those fortification tokens, which kind of provides some defense during the attacks. Then there's delegate, which lets you basically give a card to another nearby player, nearby meaning on the same hex you are at. And then you can also play a card simply for the scheme, which is the written text on the card. And then you have the army phase, where you're going to discard the tops of each order decks into the discard pile. And those are the cards that you're going to be triggering. And what you're going to do is then determine each order's or each group's speed. And you're going to resolve those orders from the highest speed to the lowest speed. Now these orders are going to be moving the different groups around the map. And there might be attacks going on, and each group might have different, for instance, like range attack, like, you can hit someone 2 spots away, different varying amounts of health, and whenever a unit is defeated, it gets removed from the board. The motivation of that group is going to go down. A horror card comes out, which is not good things, but sometimes you might want a unit to die to simply get that motivation lower. So there's different strategies on how to handle the combat and such. But there are more details. For instance, fortification tokens might provide some defense. And then there's more details on how the units target other units. But after that phase is going to be the status phase, where you kind of figure out the status of the game, whether you won, lost, or keep going. Now there are 6 different scenarios that you can play, and within each scenario there's some adjustments that you can make to kind of make the gameplay a little bit different. And there's like a storyline that you can follow. And I think overall this is a good production. All the games I played from this company, they always have a great production. The quality, the card quality, the art, of course, the storage, the organization, I really appreciate. Now, this one is definitely, you know, like I said, cooperative earlier, but I really like that you can play it. It's the same rules for all player counts. When that happens, which is usually very rare, I actually might play a game solo, which I did in this game. And not for the first time, but for a first time in a while, because I'm not a solo gamer. And if you are a solo gamer, you might like this because, you know, you can make all the decisions yourself and just kind of figure things out. It's kind of like a puzzle for yourself. But obviously there's more than one player. You know, you're all working together by doing these actions instead of just yourself. Now, with that said, this game just really is not for me. This is not my type of game. I don't know, like, you know, stuff like Gloomhaven and other stuff. Well, actually, no, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, and some other stuff like that. I'm just not interested in, you know, having these map boards out and, you know, moving characters around in different areas. I don't know. I just, for some reason, I've struggled to kind of get really into those type of games. Now, obviously, there are people that really do like those types of games. So this one might be for you. But for me, I don't know. It's just not my thing. And I didn't quite like the experience of being in the middle, trying to get these 2 animal factions to achieve peace. I don't know. I really like doing my own thing and, you know, building something or making my own decisions instead of like having to kind of, it's hard to explain, like make decisions for these other animal folk factions and how they like interact. I also just didn't seem to find it interesting trying to plan what to do all the time. Like, you know, sometimes I wasn't able to get enough orders or enough of the order decks to be flipped over on the top so I could kind of plan. Now, I don't think this is an overly complex game. I think this is another one of those middle of the road games, but the rule book is very clear and well written, so, you know, I feel like it's pretty easy to understand and the iconography is good. So if anything about this sounds interesting to you or you want to give it a try, definitely check it out. For me, this one is a pass, but it doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's just not for me. So that is Peacemakers, Horrors of War. And there you go. That is some overview and thoughts on these 4 games. So out of the 3 you played, what's your ranking?
Alright, so reminder, I played Space Station Phoenix, Panda Royale, and Trekking the World.
What's number 3?
Number 3, it's kind of tough. They're all kind of, I like them all for different reasons. I would say that the one that I'm going to reach for the least will be Space Station Phoenix.
That was my guess.
And then this might be kind of a toss-up based on how I'm feeling in the moment, but as I'm feeling right now, I would say this is 2 and this is 1.
Okay. Well, for me, this is definitely a 1. I love me some space games, and this is just a good one. Lots of fun things. I like building out the space station. 2 is probably the most difficult. I'm kind of similar to you. Like these are both kind of like, depending on how I'm feeling.
Just depends, yeah.
But I think I'm gonna go with so 1, 2, 3, 4. That's my selection. That's how I'm feeling right now. But yeah, guys, let us know which ones interest you the most. Have you played any of these? Do let us know. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.